Hey everybody, welcome back to the next installment of the Daily Dose. I'm glad to be here with you guys. We're starting off another week. We are on day number 1 of week 3, so this is day 15 altogether. And we have got some more verses we're going through in Genesis. We're looking at Genesis 46 and 47, and we're also going to be covering Psalm 15 today. If you need a copy of the PDF guide that we're using as we go through the Bible reading program this year, you can find one down below. And I will go ahead and give you guys a brief summary of what we've got going on in the text for today. So where we left off last time, Joseph's brothers had gone and met Joseph in Egypt, and Joseph basically invited them to come and stay with him over the course of the famine, and he would provide for them. So the brothers go back and they find their father Jacob. They tell him what happened, and Jacob is very excited. Jacob and their whole tribe end up packing up their belongings, and they go move over to Egypt so they can be by Joseph, and they can enjoy some good provisions during this time of famine that's going on. So we see Joseph reunited with his father, and that's a pretty emotional and touching event that happens. We also see Joseph setting his family up there with a large plot of land. It appears to be a pretty good plot of land where they can grow and be fruitful and just do very well, even during this famine. But as this famine goes on, Joseph had held back enough grain and supplies so that there would be food available for all of the Egyptians over the course of the famine. But it was never meant to be free. Joseph and Pharaoh are selling these provisions, these supplies, to the Egyptians. But after a certain amount of time, the Egyptians end up running out of money. The common Egyptian people, they burn through their money, and they don't have any money left to purchase any more grain or any more supplies. So they end up getting into a little bit of a pickle. They go to Joseph and they pretty much say, look, we don't have any money left. We can't afford to buy anything. We're going to die. What's the point in us dying? How about we sell ourselves and our land and our stuff to you, as slaves? Take our stuff, do whatever you want. We'll work for you, whatever we have to do. This is the ultimate we'll work for food. So Joseph and Pharaoh agree to that. And I guess the decision ends up being that once the famine is over with, in order to pay back Pharaoh and Joseph, aka the government, in order to pay them back, these people, many of them were herdsmen, farmers, and they said that they would give, I believe it was 5% of whatever they yielded, that they would give that to the Pharaoh and to the government going forward. I don't have that verse right in front of me, so forgive me if I'm wrong on that, but I believe it was 1/5. An interesting thing to note here, and I'm not saying this to take any jabs at any political parties, but I think it's interesting to note that the work ethic the Egyptians had. They didn't go to their government and ask for handouts when times got tough. They were willing to take responsibility for themselves and do whatever it took to earn their keep, to provide for their families. They didn't go to the Egyptians and ask for any kind of food stamps. They didn't expect Pharaoh to come up with some sort of famine stimulus and send out checks to all of the families. They were willing to take responsibility for themselves and do what had to be done. Take that for what it's worth. As far as the points of interest I wanted to discuss today, I wanted to talk about some things from Psalm 15. Psalm 15 starts out by saying, Lord, who may dwell in your sanctuary? Who may live on your holy hill? And then it goes on to talk about people that have righteous attributes and the types of people that would, in theory, be able to live on his holy hill. We get to verse number 4 in this passage as it's talking about, traits that people exhibit that are holy. It says, who despise a vile man? So who may live on your holy hill? potentially those who despise a vile man, but honors those who fear the Lord. And again, I'm going back to the first verse, who may live on your holy hill. And the next part of verse 4 says, he who keeps his oath even when it hurts. Keeping oaths and promises even when it hurts. It's hard to do. Something I haven't been very successful at in the grand scheme of things, but I try. And in our day, we don't deal too much with oaths and vows. We read about a lot of that in the Bible. Primarily in our day, we deal with promises. We make promises to people. Do we keep our promises? But the difference between a promise and an oath and a vow is a promise is just when I say to you, hey, I will do this for you. And that's it. An oath is where I swear that I'll do something in the sight of God. I bring God somehow into the promise, and it becomes an oath. If I make a vow, that's generally considered to be when you make an actual promise to God to do something, and that's very serious business. But in our day, one vow I think that most of us can relate to in some way or another. We all take marriage vows when we get married, and even if you are not married, you still know what that is. You understand what a marriage vow is, and you can relate to that in some way. Now, I know that not everybody uses the traditional wedding vows, but they're used in most cases. So those traditional wedding vows go like this. I, so-and-so, take thee, so-and-so, to be my lawfully wedded wife or husband, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better or for worse, for richer or for poorer, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish, till death do us part. This is about to be a word to any of you out there that are married. And that includes me. I'm talking to myself. But this specifically is a word for you guys that are married out there. Are you keeping the vows that you made with your spouse and with God? You didn't just make those promises to your spouse. You made a promise to them, and you also made a promise to God that you were going to do those things. So, again, vows are very serious business. How are you doing at loving and cherishing your spouse? Are you doing as good as you could be? If you think you are doing as good as you could be, you're probably not doing good enough, because we all have room for improvement. Do you talk down to your spouse and speak harshly to them? Or do you speak gently and hold them dear? Are they an inconvenience to you? Or do you view them as a blessing from God? Do you criticize? Or do you encourage? Are you putting your needs and interests above theirs? Or are you doing as we are commanded to put the interests of others, specifically our spouses, before our interests? Women, are you submitting to your husbands? Men, are you loving your wives like Christ loves the church? Let's examine ourselves and examine our marriages and think about the vows that we made to God and the oaths and promises that we made to our spouses. As you go forward today, I want you to just reflect on that, meditate on that. Ask God to show you areas in your marriage that you could do better in. Ask God to give you the power and the courage and the strength to be able to be better in those areas. And I think that's all I've got for today. But I thank you guys so much for joining along with me as we walk through this journey through the Bible. I appreciate your views, your comments, your likes, your dislikes. If you disliked it, whatever. Just give me some feedback. I always appreciate that. So thanks again. We'll do it again tomorrow. See ya.